right, so let's talk about 5.5, which is going to be learning the very last accounting costing method when it comes to periodic inventory, okay? So this one's called weighted average. Now, if you remember, right, LIFO and FIFO, they had the same similar type of formulas, and that's true of weighted average as well. However, the difference between LIFO, FIFO, and weighted average is that you're going to have a slight variation in one of the equations. So instead of solving a cost per item, right, the idea here is that we are actually going to take an average cost between them. Now, if you remember, right, when we talked about weighted average, right, the why we would choose to cost out something like this, right? And the example here is that we don't care about which batch came first, and we don't care about which batch came last, because in this case, right, they're all going to be the same at the end of the day, okay? And because they're the same, right, there's no expiration date on them. There's no, uniqueness about the later ones that you purchase later, right? Except maybe it's more expensive. But as far as that, we're going to treat as if all the inventory batches are the same. And if they're all the same, right, then we don't care which batch came first or which batch came last. So instead, what we would do is we would purchase all our inventory, right? We would take a total cost of all of the inventory that you bought and divide it by the total amount of quantity to get an average cost per item. That means no matter how many items that you purchase, right, at the end of the day, if you have a total of 1,000 items and it costs you a total of $10,000, right, then that means every item that you sell is going to cost the exact same price. So we call that average costing, and that's what this specific formula here is. Instead of calculating the actual cost per item, right, on an individual, account basis, right? So every time we purchase inventory, right, we would always do the cost per item. In this case, you don't have to. Instead, because we don't care about what came first or what came last, we care about what's your total total amounts. So we can calculate the average cost per item, okay? But everything else here is going to be the same standard formulas, right? You got the purchase expense, which is your quantity times the unit price. You got your total cost, which is going to be your purchase price plus your freight, all right? And then, of course, your beginning inventory or your ending inventory or goods available, right? And then your cost of goods sold is all going to be the same, okay? So in this case, right, let's take a look at our example here where we purchased on June 1st, right, 100 toys at $1.25 with a freight of 50, right? And of course, on June 11, we purchased another set of 100 toys at $1.28 with a freight of 26. Okay, and then at the end of the given accounting period, which is going to be on June 15, we recognize that we have 80 toys left in inventory. Okay, so again, journalize this, right? Purchase expense, freight expense. And then we plug it into our inventory worksheet. So same idea here, right? We plug in our numbers into the columns, right? And we solve for each column that is blank. So in this case, purchase price or purchase expense, whatever you want to call it, it's going to be your quantity times the unit price, which is in this case 100 times $1.25. Gives you 125 plus 25 gives you a total cost of $150. Okay. Now this is where you have the option, right? In this case, because we have to assume this. Since we only have one batch of inventory, and this is our very first batch of inventory, you are going to solve for the cost per item, because in this case, what if this is the only batch of inventory that you purchase? If this is the only one, then your average cost per item is going to be the same thing as your regular cost per item for this batch of inventory. So that's our assumption here, is that because when we start our first batch of inventory, right, our assumption is, what if this is the only one that we buy? Then you're going to solve for your cost per item, which we already know, right? If we take 150 and divide it by 100, right, we get $1.50 each. Okay. Now, of course, you're going to journalize the second one, which you plug it back into our inventory worksheet. So once again, purchase price is going to be $128. Okay, plus 26 gives you $154, which then again, you have the option to choose whether you want to solve for the cost per item. In this case, why not? I solve for it and it's $1.54. Now this is where I want you to calculate your average cost per item, okay? When we reach the end of the accounting period, right, when we're on June 15 and we're about to solve for our cost of goods sold, we need to determine the total numbers first. So in this case, we have a total of 200 toys at $253 plus $51 of freight, giving us a grand total of $304. So this is where your average cost per item is going to come into play, because now this is what we've got. We've gathered up our grand totals for each column. And the numbers that we're supposed to be looking at here is going to be the total cost and the total quantity. So in this case, right, we're going to take the total of $304 and divide it amongst 200 units. All right? So by doing so, that's going to give us a grand total average cost per item to be $1.52. Okay? Now, if you remember back in math, when we talk about average price or average costing or just the average itself, right? If my first batch is going to be costing me $1.50, right? And my second batch costs me $1.54. Average literally means where does the number fall in between the two numbers that you see. So in this case, what number falls in between 150 and 154? 152 falls directly in the middle between 150 and 154. So that's another way of defining average, okay? But in this case, right, we're looking at the total cost divided by our total quantity, which gives me a more accurate to tell me that this is $1.52 per item. So that means no matter how much you sell, whether it's from the first batch, from second batch, it doesn't matter. As long as you sell a grand total, and each item is going to cost you $1.52. Okay? So once again, these numbers are going to come into play. So we plug them all in here. Once again, plugging our numbers into the section to solve for our net purchases, right? We're assuming that we have 0 beginning balances, which then whatever net purchases we did becomes our goods available. So once again, we were also given that on June 15, you had 80 toys available. So in this case, right, if we had 80 toys available, therefore, our assumption here is that we must have sold 120 toys. So in this case, right, this is where the average cost per item is going to come into play, because we know that if all the items at the end of the day, your 200 items, all cost the same, right? Doesn't matter what batch came first, what batch came last. They're all treated the same. So in this case, in our inventory right now, right, we currently have 200 toys costing it $1.52 to give you a grand total of $304. So in this case, right, I sold a grand total of $120, 20 toys. So in this case, I'm going to calculate that against my average cost, which is $1.52, to give me one solid number of $182.40. Okay? And of course, with that, right, we take this number, right? And now we need to solve for our ending balance, which once again, right, we know it's going to be 80. So you could do 80 times $1.52, or you could just take your goods available of 304 minus 182.40, and you should get the same number of 121.60. Okay? Any questions here?
Teacher,
Yes.
for net purchases, you said the cost is the purchase value plus freight, maybe taxes, like custom fees.
Mm-hmm.
I think there is a 3 or 4 item to give up the cost of the net purchase. Just here.
Yes. Yes, but
Okay.
in this class, I'm only teaching you just 2.
Okay, thank you very much.
Because obviously we could be extensive and talk more about everything that could come into play when we're purchasing inventory. But in this case, I'm going to keep it real simple, right? You only know freight expense, right? No sales tax, no custom fees, no foreign taxes, whatever it is, right? I'm not going to include that just because, again, I want you to just get the very simple idea of what happens when you purchase inventory, what are the costs that are involved in inventory, and that's it. Okay, very simple. Okay. All right, any other questions in regards to how I solve for the average cost? Okay. So again, this is going to be one of the most simplest and most easiest type of inventory methods, just because I don't have to deal with what batch came first. I don't have to keep a track record of which items I'm going to be taking out from specific inventories. All I care about is just taking a sum grand total of what you have, right? And taking an average cost and solving it with one time only. One time calculation only. Okay? So, of course, I have to do a conversion entry, which is straightforward, right? We've been practicing this for quite some time now, where I just take whatever I solved in my inventory worksheet and just simply solve, right? Solve and plug in my numbers into my inventory, cost of goods sold, purchase expense, and freight expense. Okay. Now, what happens when we have beginning inventory? Okay. So in this case, right, our notion is that we had 80 toys left in inventory, costing, in this case, I have a typo there, it should be $121.20. Okay. We have beginning inventory. What factor does beginning inventory bring when it comes to having an average cost per item? Well, let's just take a look at the example, okay? Right? When we have beginning inventory, we're obviously going to put it in our inventory on hand, right? Because that's our beginning inventory. And our net purchases is going to be everything that we purchase. So in this case, right, we're going to plug it in, right, because on June 11th, we purchased another 100 toys at $1.27 with a freight of 25. So again, you're just going to solve just like as usual, right? You're going to get 127 plus 25, which gives you 152, okay? Again, and you don't have to solve for the average, for the cost per item, because in this case, right, I already have a pre-existing cost per item at $1.52, right? This would also be at $1.52, but it's not the only batch of inventory I'm actually purchasing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait till the very end to go ahead and solve for the average cost per item, okay? So in this case, right, I plug in my second purchase here that I made for $1.30, okay? So that gives me $1.30 plus freight of 26 would give me 156, okay? So once again, now I'm going to go ahead and solve, okay, for the rest of my items here, right? Solving that, I have 200 units here at a total cost of $308. Now, this is where I'm going to stop you here because this is not where we need to calculate our average cost per item yet because we have one given factor, right? We have what's called beginning inventory, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on and go forth with the rest of my inventory by plugging these numbers in, okay? So I plug these numbers in to solve for my net purchases. Now, because I have beginning inventory of 80 units at 121.60, I need to now, right, because now I have a total a total goods available to be 280 items at $429.60, okay? Well, let's go ahead because in this case, right, we have our cost of goods sold because we have 60 units left on hand. So our assumption is since I have available 280 units and I have 60 units on hand, my assumption is I sold 220. Now, this is where I'm going to go ahead and talk about where to solve for the average cost per item because in this case, right, our table doesn't allow us to connect our numbers together, right? So this is where you have to go use your little worksheet in the middle, right? The little scratch paper section there and solve for our average cost per item because in this case, right, we're going to take a look at our goods available, right? We have a total of 280 toys costing at a grand total of $429.60. So we plug these two numbers in their respective columns. And then now we need to solve for the average cost per item. So I'm going to take my total cost of $429.60 and divide it amongst 280 toys. Now in this case, it's going to give me a unrounded answer. So in this case, it gave me $1.5343. Okay? Because in this case, right, we have one batch for 152, we have one batch for another 152, and then we have another batch of 156 or something like that, right? So in this case, we need to take the average between all of that, and that should roughly give you almost 1.54, right? In this case, this gives us the most accurate information. And what I'm going to have you guys do is I'm going to teach you how to use equal round today in Excel to solve for your total cost of goods sold, right? So in this case, on average, each item that I sell from my inventory, it's going to cost $1.5343 each. So in this case, if I sold 220 toys, right, at $1.5343, I'm going to get a total of $337.54. Okay. which then you easily solve for your ending inventory by taking your average cost, or you can do it by taking your goods available and subtracting the cost of goods sold. Okay, to leave you with $52.06 remaining. Okay, any questions here?
No.
Okay. So remember, at the end of the day, when we're dealing with weighted average, right? Even if we buy more and more and more inventory, at the end of the day, we're just going to combine them all together. Excuse me, and just solve for an average cost per item, which then gives us one number to deal with. And when we take that one number, we're going to calculate our ending balance as well as our cost of goods sold using only one number. Okay? And then again, you're going to do your little conversion entry here when we have our beginning inventory and ending inventory. Okay? So, in conclusion, when we took a look at all three methods, okay, let's compare and contrast them, okay? When we learned our very first method of FIFO, right, our results ended up us having a total of 80 toys costing at a grand total of $123.20, right? And our cost of goods sold was $180.80. Excuse me, all right? And in this case, right, that was the FIFO method. Now, when we take a look at the LIFO method, right, in this case, we flopped and switched the way that we cost everything, right? We got rid of our more expensive items first, and then we slowly have remaining our less expensive inventory. So then that caused us having a result of 80 toys resulting at $120, while we cost of goods sold was $184. So we end up selling, or the cost of selling the items was significantly higher. Where when we do the weighted average, right, since we didn't care about which batch came first and which batch came last, right, instead we took an average between the two batches of inventory that we bought, and we end up getting the result of having 121.60 remaining, and we sold a total of 182.40. Now in this case, right, let's compare and contrast which one works best for you. Okay, that will all depend on what kind of item you sell in your store, okay? If you sell groceries, your best bet is you should use FIFO, just because definitely something you definitely want to make sure that you sell out your first batches of inventory first, okay? LIFO and weighted average can vary depending on what kind of item that you do sell. In this case, right, if you have non-expiring items, right, you have the freedom to choose between LIFO or weighted average, because it doesn't matter, right, at the end of the day, which, because you're going to just sell them accordingly, right? It doesn't matter. There's no time limit or there's no expiration date that you need to follow, okay? So that will give you the choice of flexibility there. Now, in most cases, right, small businesses, right, would more or less go for the weighted average because of just how simple it is. And on top of that, that way they don't overstate their assets or they don't understate their assets, okay? So meaning reporting higher inventory or reporting low inventory, okay? They're just, they most likely small businesses would prefer to use the weighted average because, again, when you're a small business owner, right, or even a large corporation where you're selling gazillions of items, would it benefit you to have a specific tracking method for each one. Okay. Now, if you're like a similar store like Walmart, right, that sells all three different products, right, sells groceries, sells products that don't have a life shelf, right, like household goods, right, they don't expire, right, but they do have like other, like, as you continue purchasing their stuff, right, there's newer models every time they purchase something, right, and of course they also sell things like water bottles, right? Things that sell always at like, it's a natural resource that always sells out, and they're consistently or constantly purchasing water, right? So in this case, Walmart can use all three methods to calculate for their business, right? Whichever way that they make it sense for the products that they sell, okay? And of course, yeah, because it just makes sense to just do it that way. And in this case, yes, you do also have the freedom to choose which one works best for you. Okay? But for a major corporation like Walmart that sells consistently every single day all of these products, right? They might be better off with just doing the weighted average, because then at the end of the day, they don't need to keep a track record of what came first or what came last, because at the end of the day, a lot of the groceries are going to be scrapped out anyway. A lot of household products that have long shelf life, right, must be removed off the shelf at one point. Same thing with water, right? Water is consistently taken off the shelf over and over and over again because they're consistently being sold out. So at the end of the day, right, weighted average might be better for selling all three products, because that way they don't have to keep a really good track record of what came first and what came last. They just simply take an average of everything and just cost it that way, because at the end of the day, they're going to take a loss. And what is a loss to Walmart? It's nothing to compare to the revenues that they bring in. Okay? So once again, that's just a little scenario there. Okay? Chapter review. So when we talked about periodic inventory and how we cost it, right? If you think of it this way, right? When we're talking about FIFO, we start from our first batch and we make it down to the bottom, right? Where for LIFO, we start from the bottom and make our way up to the top. And then for average costing, it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, we need to take a total of each one and solve for the average cost per item, and we're done for the day. Okay? So that's just a little quick overview there. Okay? Any questions in regards to chapter 5.5?
No.
Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and dive right into the chapter 5.5 exercises, okay? And in this case, journalizing, I'm actually just going to only ask you to journalize the conversion entries, just because it's going to be rinse and repeat, right? That we've already done these journalizing the transactions, right, many times before. Oops. Okay, right, where you're just going to do the purchase expense, freight expense, and these are the same exact scenarios. Okay, you're going to purchase 1,000 toys at $5 each with the freight of 100, right? We've been doing this rinse and repeat over and over again. But this time, what I want to do here is I want you to just go ahead and plug them into the worksheets and just only journalize the conversion entry, okay? Because, again, we've already done journalizing for these transactions already. We did it 6 times already, okay? So let's go ahead and dive right into the very first one. So if I have purchased inventory on April 5th, I purchased 1,000 toys at $5 each, with the freight costing $100. Okay. So I'm going to plug it into my first inventory worksheet over here. Make it a little bigger. So it is April 5th. Okay. We purchased 1,000 units at $5 each with the freight costing $100. So what is going to be my purchase price?
5,000.
It's going to be 5,000. Good. Plus $100 gives me a total cost of
5,100.
5,100. And because it's my very first batch of inventory, right? Assuming that we don't have any other inventories after that, what is going to be my average cost per item for my very first batch of inventory?
$5.10.
$5.10. Okay. Let's see what's next. Here, all right, April 10, we purchased 750 units at $5.75 each with a freight of 75. Okay. So April 10, 750 at 575 with a freight of 75. Okay. So what's my total purchase price here?
$4,312.05.
Okay, not 550, 50 cents. Okay. Okay, plus my $75 gives me a total cost of
$4,387.
okay. Now in this case, right, this is my second batch of inventory. I am not going to solve for my average cost per item because in this case, we don't have our totals yet, right? In this case, I would have to solve for my totals that I have now in order to solve for my average cost per item. So I'm going to go ahead and skip that section and move on to the next scenario. All right, so here, April 20th, we purchased 200 units at $6 each with a freight of 20. Okay, so again, it's April 20. We have 200 units, $6 each with the freight of 20. Okay. So what is my purchase price here?
$1,200.
1,200 plus 20 gives me a total cost of
$1,220.
$1,220. Okay. Last thing that we have here on April 25th is that we purchased 500 units at $6.25 each with a freight of 50. Okay. And of course, we're also given that on April 30th, you have a total of 600 units left on hand. So let's plug in our last piece of information here, our 500 at $6.25 with a freight of 50. So what's my purchase price going to be here?
$3,125.
Good. Plus 50 gives me a total cost of?
$3,175.
Good. So because we know that at the end of the given month, right, we have a total of 600 units available. So I'm going to go ahead and type that in here. 600 is going to be my ending inventory. So now I need to solve for my total quantity with my total cost, right? I need to total up all my columns. So In this case, how many items did I purchase in grand total?
$2,450.
2,450, right? What was my total purchase price?
$13,637. Okay, yes, 5.
Yes, that's correct. And then what about my total freight?
$2,400.
2,045. Sorry, 245.
Yes.
Okay, bringing me my total cost to be 13,882.50. Okay. So then when I solve for this, right, this is where I need to solve for my average cost per item. Okay, in this case, because I'm assuming that I don't have any returns or any discounts or anything right there that can affect it. So here's going to be my average cost per item. Now in this case, right, how do I solve for my average cost per item? What's my total cost?
Total cost divided quantity.
Good. So in this case, I'm going to take my total cost of 13,882.50 and divide it by my total quantity of 2,450. So what is my average cost per item going to be?
$5.666.
Oops, too many. All right. 5.6663. Okay, 6633. Okay. Good. So let's go ahead and plug in our numbers in here in our net purchases so we can solve for our and our cost of goods sold. So in this case, quantity, right? We purchased 2,450 items at 13,637. Our assumption is that we don't have any returns and allowances, so we'll get to take a look at that in a after this. Okay. And of course, freight adds nothing to quantity, but it does add to total cost. Okay, so in this case, right, we still have 2,450 items at $13,882.50. Okay, and because we have no beginning inventory, right? And we're going to carry our numbers down from our net purchases, right? Our assumption here is that our net purchases is going to become our goods available. Okay? So if I have 600 units left on hand, my assumption is how many items did I sell?
$18.50.
1850, okay? So in this case, right? 1850 is what I need to solve for, okay? So I can simply take 1850 and what is my average cost per item?
5.66.
Okay, so 5.6663, right? So in this case, this is going to be my average cost per item. Now in this case, right? Let me see, 1, 2, 3, right? I have 0.63 cents, okay? That is almost nearly $1. Now, if you choose to round now, right? Let's say you choose to round this to $5.67, you're going to notice this. If I were to sell all 1,000 items at $5.67, I'm going to get an even amount of $10,489.50. That means I cost my inventory at a higher price because in this case, right, I got rid of this much inventory that cost me $10,489.50. Okay? Now in this case, this is where I'm going to teach you the equal round because I want you to round at the end, because in this case, if I round off too early, I might be losing out in the opportunity for higher profits, because in this case, I potentially lost 0.15 cents, or sorry, 0.35 cents per item I sell. 0.35. So if I sold 1,000 items, I just lost $3.50 just right there because I rounded too early. Now, what am I talking about? So let's go ahead and let's take a look at what happens if you just left it unrounded, okay? And just use the 5.6633 number instead of the 5.65. So in this case, right, let's go ahead, and this is what I'm going to teach you, okay? The best way, instead of actually just going ahead and multiplying them across, right, what you're going to notice is that your number is going to expand all the way out here. So in this case, right, I costed out at $10,482.70. So in this case, if I were to make a profit, I just lost $7 worth in profits because I sold $18.50, right? And I said, like I mentioned before, right, that's 35 cents. That's 0.35 cents per item. And if I sold 1,000 of them, I lost $3.50. Now this one, I doubled up that amount. So in this case, I lost a total $7 to my cost of goods sold, meaning I just lost out $7 in profits. That's $7 I could have earned, but instead I run them a number too early. So this is why I want you to not round to the nearest penny, for the reasons of if you are selling inventory in large quantities, such as thousands and thousands of units per item, right, you will lose out on profits. And if you look at the difference between rounded and unrounded, right, if I unround, I have $7 less. If I round, I have $7 more in cost. So therefore, I lost $7 of potential profit that I could have earned. So in this case, as a business standpoint, I would recommend you to round towards the end of the accounting, or in this case, round towards the end after costing how much each one is. Now, if I go ahead and take a look at this and I extend it out, okay? If I extend it out, can I ever cost an item at 0.408 cents?
No.
No, you can't, because this is also where we have to do it in terms of monetary units, right? We need to determine it in terms of dollars. It is in dollars, but there's no such thing as 0.4 pennies, right? You're not going to take a penny and split it into 4 and be like, here you go, here's your 0.4 cents. No, it doesn't work that way, All right. So in this case, this is where I'm going to teach you the equal round formula. Okay. So if I go ahead and click and put enter or equal, right? And I type in round, what this does is it takes the number of the formula that you're doing it and it rounds it off by a specific decimal point. So in this case, to figure out what the criteria is that you do your equal round, right? You have your parentheses. The first argument is going to be what is the equation you are trying to solve. So in this case, I'm trying to solve for my quantity times my cost per item, okay? And then you're going to end your argument with a comma, okay? Next argument is going to be how many decimal places are you going to round this answer to? And in this case, I want to the nearest penny. So that means that's 2 decimal places I need to round my answer to. And I press enter. And what you're going to notice is that now the difference between just multiplying them regularly, right? I had 0.408 cents. In this case, it rounds it all the way to the point to the nearest penny, and it leaves the rest of the numbers to 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. So this is what I want you to do, because this is what's going to be the most accurate type of information that we have here, is by using the equal round formula towards the end. I never want you to do equal round in the beginning because you will lose out on your profits, okay? Now, of course, with any company that you work with, if they tell you that you're going to round it to the nearest penny when you're calculating your cost of goods sold, you're going to actually, it's going to be a little more difficult because if you round your numbers early, right, you're going to notice that when you solve for your ending inventory, you cannot use the method where you take your ending inventory and multiply it by the actual average cost per item, because that's going to give you a rounded number. So you have to be very careful in your calculations and take them out accordingly. So if I rounded my numbers to the 5.67, which gave me 10,489, right? That is where I have to keep track of it. So then the next time I sell my items, I've already taken that much out of my inventory. So again, there's a little more extra math when it comes to rounding your numbers carefully, because at the end of the day, you don't want to over calculate that you have more inventory or more cost at the end of the given accounting period, okay? So in this case, my best advice to you is to not round until the end, okay? So in this case, I have 10,482.70. So therefore, what is going to be my ending inventory? Okay? The cost of my ending inventory is going to be $3,399.80. Okay? Any questions on how I solved for this average cost per item?
Yes,
Yes.
I have. In this case, if I have opening balance or beginning balance,
Uh-huh.
where I have to put it in the place at the top of the schedule?
No, you do not put it up here. You would put it on inventory on
Inventory on
hand.
hand.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, not put inventory in hand.
Yes, you would put it in inventory in hand, and that's the next example. You want to...
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay. So there we are, right? So let's go ahead and solve for our conversion entry here to complete the rest of the transaction. Okay. So my conversion entry, okay, what do I need to recognize? How do I journalize my conversion entry? Okay, so it's April 30th.
With inventory or?
Inventory. What else?
Cost of goods sold.
Cost of goods sold.
And purchase expense and freight expense.
Okay, good. So what was my ending balance in my inventory?
10,482.70.
That's cost of goods sold.
Oh, wait. Oh, sorry. I meant 3,399.
Good, right? And then of course my cost of goods sold is the 10,482.70. Okay. What was my total purchases?
13,637.50.
And then my freight?
245.
Good. So again, just to double check if your debits match your credits, I have 13,882.50 on the left, and I have 13,882.50 on the right. Okay. And once again, my conclusion or my entry here is to convert to inventory. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and do continue on with this example here. Okay. All right. So let's continue with the inventory exercise. Right. Our assumption is that we're our periodic and weighted average. Excuse me. Okay. So again, April 30th. Okay, you have a total of 600 units on hand, which we know because that is exactly what we solved for in our ending inventory from our previous batch of inventory, right? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to carry these number over across into the new inventory worksheet. Okay? So in this case, here's my inventory on hand, right? I have 600 units at a grand total cost of $3,399.80. Okay. Now this is where you can also solve for your average cost per item here, just because this is what I had earlier, right, in my inventory from my previous inventory worksheet, that it was 5.6666333, right? So again, because this is my beginning balance of inventory here, I'm going to go ahead and reflect my answers here. Okay, because that's my beginning balance. That's my actual inventory I actually have on hand. Okay. So Magdi, this is what you were talking about earlier. If I had beginning balances, where would I put it? I would put it right here in this top line, top section right here where it says inventory on hand. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So then let's go ahead and continue on with the scenario. So here, May 5th, we purchased 500 units at $625 with a freight of 50. Okay. So May 5th, 500 at $625 with a freight of 50. So in this case, what is going to be my total, purchase price? What's my purchase price going to be? $3,125. Okay, good. Plus my freight of 50.
3,175.
Okay. And in this case, we don't need to solve for our average cost per item because in this case, I have multiple inventories that I need to calculate our grand total for. Okay. So then on May 10, we purchased 800 units at $6 with a freight of $80. So May 10, 800 units at $6 with a freight of 80. So what is my purchase price here?
4,800.
4,800 plus $80 gives me a total cost of
4,880.
good. All right. Then May 20th rolls around. We end up purchasing 300 units at $6.15 with a freight of 15. Okay. So May 20th, 300 units at $6.15 with a freight of 15. So in this case, what's my total purchase price here?
$945. Oh, well, I don't know how I got it.
Hold on, it's 300 units at $6.15 with a freight of 15. Okay, so
Oh, I forgot to add the 15 cents. Whoops.
okay, that's fine. Okay. $18.45, okay. Plus $15 of freight give me a total cost of
1,860.
1,860. Okay. Last but not least, May 25th, we purchased 100 toys at $6.30 each with a freight of 50. And then on May 31st, you have a total of 400 units available in inventory. So let's go ahead and add in our last entry here, okay, for $6.30 and $5 freight. So my total purchase price here
630.
plus my freight of $5 gives me a total cost of
635.
okay. And because we were given the idea that at the end of the accounting period, you had a total of 400 units left. So let's go ahead and solve for my net purchases. Okay. So in this case, how many items did I buy in grand total?
$1,700.
1,700. Okay. What was my total purchase price?
$10,400.
Good. What was my total freight?
$150.
Okay. Bringing me a grand total of 10,550. Now in this case, I cannot put my average cost per item in this column because I'm missing one key feature, and that is to add my beginning balance. So in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and skip that little column there and plug in the rest of my stuff and then solve down below. Okay? So in this case, right, let's plug in our numbers to solve for our net purchases. Okay? We purchased a total of 1,700 units at 10,400. no returns or allowances. Okay. But we did have freight, right, which increases our total cost. Okay. So therefore, I have a total of 1,700 units at a grand total of 10,550. Okay. Now in this case, we do have a beginning balance. It is going to be the 600 units that we carried over from our previous inventory, right? For the $3,399.80. Okay. We're going to carry our net purchases down, okay, to give us our grand total goods available to be 2,300 at a grand total of $13,949.80. So this is where I'm going to go ahead and take my average cost per item, right? If I have a total quantity of 2,300 units, right, at a total cost of $13,949.80, okay, I need to solve for my average cost per item. And I'm going to do that by taking my total cost divided by my total quantity. And can anyone help me solve for what my average cost per item is?
Uh, 6.06513.
Okay. Good, right? That is my average cost per item. Okay. So if I have 400 items left in my inventory, my assumption is I must have sold 1,900 units. So straightforward this one is, right? We take our 1,900, we're going to multiply it by our 6.6, which is our average cost per item. And once again, I'm going to use the equal round formula just so then I have my numbers rounded, okay? First part of the argument is going to be your equation. What's the formula that you're going to be solving? In this case, it's going to be my quantity times my cost per item, right? End your argument with a comma, and the next part is going to be how many decimal places do you want to round your number to? In this case, I want the nearest penny, so that means that's 2 decimal places, okay? Enter, and I get a grand total of $11,523.75. Okay, as my total cost of goods sold. Okay, so if that's my total cost of goods sold, what is my ending inventory?
Uh, 2,426 and 4 cents.
426.05. Good. Okay. Any questions here?
Nah.
Okay, so again, this is going to be one of the more simplest, it is the simplest type of costing method, right? You don't need to highlight keeping track of which batch came first, which batch came last. All we really care about is what the grand total amount is and just taking the average cost from there. So in this case, right, not much calculations you really have to do except for maybe 1 or 2 calculations, right? easiest one to do. So last but not least, let's go ahead and do our conversion entry. Okay. So again, it is 531. Okay. I have my ending inventory, cost of goods sold, purchase expense, freight expense, and then I have my ending inventory. Okay, very important that you recognize that. Or my beginning inventory, excuse me. Okay. So let's go ahead and solve for these numbers here. So what was my ending inventory balance?
2,426 and 5.
Okay. What was my total cost of goods sold?
11,523.75.
Good. What was my total purchase price?
10,400.
And what was my total freight?
150.
And what was my beginning balance?
3,399.80.
Okay. Once again, I'm going to do my formula just to double confirm that my debits and credits match on both sides. So I have a total of 13,949.80 on the left, 13,949.80 on the right. Okay, and last but not least, to convert into inventory. Okay. Any questions in regards to this chapter exercise?
No.
Okay. Now, I think I'm going to change the schedule. Go ahead. You had a question?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay. I think I'm going to change the schedule real quick here. So, okay. So let's go ahead and complete the exercise part 2 over here, okay, to get us a little extra practice on weighted average. So in this case, I've already solved for or plugged in all the numbers in here. So once again, if you want to do it for yourself, you have the scenario right here, okay? So let's go ahead and let's solve for each one. Now this one's different from the previous ones we've done. So this time, right, on June 1st, I purchased 1,500 units at $1.30. So in this case, what's my total purchase price here?
$1,950.
1,950. Okay, I got $200 worth of freight to give me a grand total cost of
2,150.
2,150. Okay, in this case, I obviously know that I have multiple batches of inventory. So in this case, I'm just going to ignore the cost per item and continue going on forth. Okay. So then the next one's going to be on June 5th. I purchased 700 units at $1.35 each. So in this case, what's my purchase price here?
945. Yeah.
Good. Okay. Plus, I have $100 worth of freight. So that should give me
1,045.
1045. Okay. All right. Then on June 8th, I have 800 units at $1.32. So in this case, what's my total purchase price here?
12,054.
12.
1,000.
Yeah, good, good. Plus $120 worth of freight gives me a total cost of
1374.
$13.74. Okay. Then on June 10, I purchased 1,200 units at $1.30. So in this case, my purchase price is
1560.
$15.60 plus an additional $150 freight to give me a total cost of
1710.
$17.10. Good. Last two here, okay? On June 12th, I purchased 800 units at $1.25 each. So what's my total purchase price?
1,000.
1,000, okay, plus $100 worth of freight gives me a total cost of
1,100.
okay. Last but not least, we have on June 14, I purchased 550 units at $1.30.
715.
Okay, plus $70 worth of freight.
785.
Good. So now I reached the end of my conclusion, right? Because let's see what the scenario says. On June 15, I have a total of 500 units on hand. So in this case, ending balance is going to be 500 units. So therefore, I need to tally up my total. So in this case, what was the total quantity that I purchased?
5,700.
5,700, okay? What was my total purchase price?
7,424.
7,424, okay? What was my total freight?
740.
740, okay? Giving me my grand total cost of
8,164.
okay? So you have a choice here. You want to solve for the average cost per item here, or you could do it down below. Because in this case, I have an assumption there is no returns or allowances or any beginning inventory. So in this case, right, what is my average cost per item? If I take $8,164 and divide it by 5,700 toys or units, what is my average cost per item?
1.4322807.
Good. So let's go ahead and plug in my answers here. So again, I have a total of 5,700 units at a total of 7,424, right? Assuming I have no returns and allowances, which we'll take a look at that tomorrow. Okay. So therefore, I have that. Freight does not affect my quantity, but it affects my total cost. So in this case, right, my total net purchases is going to be $8,164. Okay. Again, I don't have beginning inventory, so if I carry my net purchases down, therefore my goods available is going to be my net purchases. Okay. All right, so if I have 500 left in inventory, my assumption is I must have sold how many units?
6,200.
5,200. Okay. So then I'm going to go ahead and calculate that I sold 5,200, right? I'm going to multiply that by my average cost per item of the 143,228. Okay? And once again, I'm going to do my formula. Equal, round, open parentheses, quantity times my average cost, comma, 2 decimal places, to give me a total cost of goods sold to be
Uh, 7,400, 7,447 or 86.
good. Okay. So in this case, if you are using a calculator, okay, that's the tricky thing about having unrounded numbers while using a calculator because you're punching in those numbers. Now, of course, the best way to do it is that when you calculate your average cost per item, leave that number in your calculator and proceed with just multiplying the number of cost of goods sold, right? But in this case, if you are punching these numbers again over and over, best recommendation is to at least have 6 decimal places. Okay, that should give you enough to get you to the rounded answer. Okay, the more numbers, the more accurate you're able to get the answer. Okay, but in this case, I'm telling you now, if you are punching in that average cost per item, you should go 6 digits after the decimal. Okay, that will give you the closest that you can get, but obviously the more the better. So in this case, right, I sold a total of $7,447.86. So therefore, that should leave my ending balance to equal what?
$716.14.
716.14. Okay. So once again, let's go ahead and complete the journal entry here. So again, my ending inventory. I'm on the wrong box. Okay. So my ending inventory was 716.14, right? My cost of goods sold. How much was my cost of goods sold?
7,447.86.
Okay. What was my total purchases?
7,424.
And lastly, what was my total freight?
740.
Lots of sevens. 7777, okay? So in this case, no beginning inventory because we didn't have begin inventory. So again, we're going to double confirm that our debits match our credits. Okay, so I got 8,164 on the left, 8,164 on the right. Okay. Any questions in regards to chapter 5.5?